AFUSA. We are absolutely thrilled. I am specifically thrilled. My name's Renee Ketchum, and we're welcoming today best-selling author Gilles Legardinier, who is going to take us on this incredible quest, guiding us through his book, The Paris Labyrinth. So everybody knows we have a couple of amazing events coming up, as you can see on the slide. Paris as a refuge for African Americans. Proust for beginners, which I strongly recommend. Caroline Weber is brilliant. She lives in Manhattan, works at Barnard, and if you love Proust, or if you haven't started, she is the person to start with. And then we have Between America and Paris with novelist Diane Johnson. So just a couple of logistics. I think we've done so many of these that most of you understand them. Please stay on mute during the presentation. And we will be using the chat feature for a Q&A following Gilles' presentation. Select speaker view, and then we hope everybody understands that this is being recorded, and you will be able to access the recording or share it with anyone that you know that happened to miss it via the AFUSA YouTube channel. And the total runtime should be about 1 hour. So welcome again, Gilles Legardinier. Gilles worked in the film industry in pyrotechnics and screenwriting. And for those of you who are reading the book, pay attention to the pyrotechnics. His novels have sold over 6 million copies and been translated into 22 languages. The Paris Labyrinth, which I'm so surprised, is his first novel to be translated into English. So please take a look on the bottom of the screen and you can see all of the other books that Gilles is so well known for around the world. And I highly recommend that the minute you finish listening to this, that you go and buy the book, The Paris Labyrinth. So I'm so thrilled to welcome Gilles Legardinier and Kate Mascaro. So we wanted to say a few words about, I can't really see all this text right here, Melissa. I think everybody's gonna have to read it. La Marion, these are a few fun facts, 1875 to 2019. And I think everybody can read that on their screen because somehow it's blocked on my screen at the moment. Next slide. Here we have a picture of the cover of the book, and I think Gilles is planning to show us the interior cover with a map, published in 2021. So welcome, Gilles. And I didn't have a chance, Melissa, maybe I missed the slide, but Gilles will be talking to Kate Mascaro, and I just wanted to give you a little bit of information about Kate, who is originally from New York and Boston, where she began her career at Little Brown and Harvard Business School Publishing. In 2000, she flew to Paris for a 3-month sabbatical and never looked back. Her first job in France was leading luxury bike tours for Divine Adventures in Burgundy, Provence, the Loire, and Bordeaux. And since 2002, she's been editorial director for Flammard's English language department, whose mission is to bring French culture to the world. She published the New York Times bestseller Parisian Chic with Inès de la Fressange, and The Complete Bocuse, which Forbes listed as one of the best French cookbooks of all time. So we can't wait to hear about your books next. So anyway, welcome to you both, and we look forward to this wonderful conversation.
Thank you, Renee.
So I wanted to thank La Fédération des Alliances Françaises and all of the local chapters. I wanted to thank you, Renee and Melissa as well, and Gilles for being here with us. And I'm so delighted to introduce all of you who are watching this virtual talk with Gilles Legardinier to his new book, The Paris Labyrinth. So Gilles, you have published 17 books and they span all different kinds of genres. You've done comedy, you've done some nonfiction, you've done thrillers like this one. And I wondered if you could tell us what sparked the idea for The Paris Labyrinth and its main character, Vincent Cavell.
It all began more than 20 years ago. I was supervising a strong refurbishment for an American friend in Paris. He was transforming a three-flat condo flat into one triplex, and he asked me to supervise because he wasn't on site. So I accepted because we were friends, And as you know, in France, there is many rules, many administration. And I mostly spend my time with paper, architects, regulation, and this kind of thing. But one day I received one phone call from the worker. By destroying one wall, they discovered an hidden room, approximately 3 meters long, 2 meters wide. The room was lost behind a wall closed by many wallpapers. And it was really strange. I came, and inside there were nothing except one chair, one table, one shelf. On this shelf, one bottle with inside a strange dark liquid. I tried to convince almost everyone to taste it, to know what it was. No one accepted. It was sad, and we were obliged to analyze the liquid. It was a sort of I don't know, un vaincu like Porto. And I swear I tested it after, and it was absolutely disgusting. So, but I'm still alive, and this room was a mystery because the way you could get inside was a panel. You have to push it, repeat on the right, and it was moved by a really precise mechanism. It was true. It was in Paris today. And we made research I asked for with attorney and this kind of thing to know the previous owners. And we never managed to find why one of them could have built this kind of place. We managed to know the bottle because of the form and the way it was made. Was from the end of the 19th century, the 18th century, sorry. I have to confess that I'm not used to talk about this in your language. I do apologize for the light lack of vocabulary. I do my best, I promise. And so I asked myself, who built this room and who made this mechanism? And it's probably at that time that Vincent Cavel, the main character of my book, came to life.
Can you tell us a little bit about Vincent? What does he do, and who is he? And is there any bit of you who you put into him as a character? And do you do that sometimes in your books? Do you put yourself into your characters?
There is not too much from me in my character. I'm an author. I'm not writing to exist or to be myself. I know who I am. I don't need to be present my character. Sometimes it could be some similarity, but it's just like this. It's not on purpose. And Vincent is a man at a time where everything was changing. Was changing. Sorry, and I'm so impressed by you. And he tried to protect the people he loved. And it's an orphan. He raised his own brothers, younger brothers, and he tried to avoid orphanage. So he worked as a trainee for a clockmaker, and this clockmaker was a man who built special mechanism for secret passages. So Vincent learned this from the early years, and he ran now his own business with his brothers and two friends. One German, one Italian. It was already European, and it's an important time because everything was changing.
Yeah, and it was really interesting. So you take this young man. He used to be a watchman's apprentice. He's now working with his friends and using some of the skills that he had learned as an apprentice for his business. Can you tell us a little bit about what they do? What is their business together?
To understand what they are doing, you have to know that at this time, if you possess some value, whatever it is, it could be papers, because it was the beginning of industry on titles. It could be gold, jewelry, artistic pieces. You have to protect them by yourself in your own house. There was no bank safe. There was no security system. You have to. The best way was to hide them. If you can find them, you can steal them. So every rich house had a secret place, maybe under the floor, maybe behind the wall. And richest people were able to build very, very sophisticated systems to protect their belongings.
Which is what was the link between that secret apartment that you found with this hidden room and the idea that someone could have a skill where they are able to make these very complicated hidden mechanisms where they can hide away their precious documents or their precious jewels or whatever it is.
Exactly.
So that's really interesting. And at this time, so the book takes place in 1889, which was a really interesting moment in Paris. Can you tell a little bit about what was happening and why that time in Paris, it was really an interesting moment to set your book in?
So at this time, the world was globally changing. Rise of certain nations, new technologies, new social rules too. In few years, people discovered electricity, radio, and mostly that more important, they discovered that other people had a different way of life than them. I'm not sure. Is that okay? Because of the press, because of photography, they discovered that very rich people does exist. Mm-hmm. It was really new. It's the beginning. During this time, industry became extremely powerful. Technology was growing every day. People were scared. You have to remember that two years between the Exposition Universelle, authorities demonstrate the first bulb, electric bulb, light, and in front of a place full of people. And when they light it, people completely panicked. You have to imagine four dead by fear, by panic, by it was crazy. People were completely panicked by this changing time. It's why I think that period, my secret genius is just here. Hi. My daughter. At this time, people were afraid of future. Science promised progress for everyone, fortune for everyone, but many of people knows, experiments that it wasn't true. Paris was changing. More than half of Paris was really destroyed at this time because streets were redesigned. Some area were completely destroyed. You have to remember that only 30 years before this time, Montmartre was a village far from Paris. To go to Montmartre, you have to cross a forest. Can you imagine that? You have to get out from Paris, walk or if you reach with a horse, and you risk your life. You risk your life to go to Montmartre. And since 1862, Montmartre became a part of Paris. And Paris, it hid Montmartre, as we can say, ate Montmartre, as we can say, but you can feel until now a special spirit in Montmartre. Montmartre never accepted this ingestion.
Getting swallowed up by Paris. Yeah, that's true. But so speaking of these technological changes and sort of social differences that were really coming to light during this time in 1889, it was also a moment where there was a really exciting event that was happening in Paris. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes, at this time, with the Exposition Universelle, Paris was a little bit the center of the world, because every country, every powerful people came into Paris during 4 months. It was really the place to be. To build the exhibition, it was more than 5,000 workers with no social rights who built a complete city just behind the Tour Eiffel. And the Tour Eiffel was previously programmed to be destroyed 3 years later. And do you know why the tower is still here? Because the army, because they need it for radio. Without military authority, Eiffel Tower will be destroyed now. And at this time, Eiffel Tower was the highest built point on Earth. 30 years later, USA took the record by the Empire State Building, I think. So you won. Great.
Those are just some of the great examples of all of the immense research that went into documenting sources and discovering all of the research that went into this book. And you didn't do it single-handedly. You had a partner in your research. And I wondered if together maybe you could talk to us a little bit about how you went about doing the research that you did over several years, and how you sifted through it to create what would become the Paris Labyrinth.
I began alone. I always make a lot of research for my book, even for comedy. I have to know what I am writing about. And I began to read books and books, many. And my daughter, may I introduce?
Please.
Hello, everybody.
Chloe, read them often, and sometime I was lost because we had 100 books. I met many people, many authorities. We visited so much places, and I asked for Chloe to help me to find precise points, because at this time, what does it mean? You close your door and you got out of your home. What does it mean?
Do you want me to?
Yes,
Okay,
try to explain this.
Hello, everybody. So my name is Chloe and I am Gilles' daughter. I had the chance to actually help my father working on this book, doing the historical research with him. So just as he said, he started on his own because he has such a capacity for work and for learning I yet yearn to gain. And I had the chance to walk with him along the way after that. And we had a strong basis of common knowledge in the beginning, but then my dad started to write the book, and I kept going with the research for very specific details, just like he said, because at the time, you don't know what a doorknob looks like. You don't know who goes to school, where the rich lives, where the poor go to have food or things like that. It was a lot to look for. And so I helped him with specific points. And we were lucky enough to have some help from very different people and lots of professionals. So we had historical archives, but also military, architectural, and also religious archives, which were open for us. And we want to thank so many people for that. And I couldn't go with my father on this one, but he actually went underground Paris in the network of tunnels to look at the tunnels for real, to see how it was done, where it would lead, and to visit so many places that are actually close to the public. So we were lucky on this, and I was lucky to work with my father, not only as a daughter, but on, how would you say that, on some equal footing. You know, I had the chance to suddenly learn with a man that works so much and which knows how to work, who is committed in what he does. And that means a lot to me, not only because he's my father.
I become red. So you don't need me anymore.
So, well, it's good to be here today.
So you were doing research by interviewing people, by
Yes.
going underground, because that's another important part of the book as well. But were you going into libraries and online research, everything?
It was really specific because you can easily find general knowledge, but I build my story. It's first of all the story of a man of his family, and I needed some precise things about how you stop a fire, how you can drive, what street look like, if you've got a gun, where do you keep it on you when you are outside? Everything changed since. So we had to know the little details, and we learned so much to use a so little part.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we discovered very interesting things or facts, but they were too slow for the story or too far from my story. So we learned a lot. We use a little bit, and we hope so. Humanly, the book is strong enough to entertain people.
Is there any one fact that you really loved and you thought was really surprising that didn't make it into the book?
So many.
So many.
So,
The maps.
maybe the maps, yes.
Yeah, it's not a precise fact, but actually we had maps coming from all around the world, all maps of Paris, but sometimes archives from other nations would have the missing parts of ours. And we did find some mistakes on the military maps of France by crossing information between countries. And that was so funny because that sometimes we just didn't know which one to trust. We had different information of different armies and even the French one. So that was funny.
We told to the military archives, and they agreed.
Yeah.
It was great.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, it certainly makes the book very visual and really feeds into that kind of cinematic ambiance that takes the reader there. And we might talk about that a little bit later as well. But Gilles, we've talked a little bit about the story of the book. And I wondered if you'd be willing to tell us a little bit more about you yourself, because you've had right from the start a very unusual life. And I just wondered if you'd be able to tell us a little bit about some of that.
Okay, I don't know if it's usual, but it's particular. But I'm sure everyone I see here has a particular one. I know I never met one single person with a simple and easy life. We've got all trials, sorrow, regrets, fear, and I like see life as a festival of listen. And I began very early because I was abandoned when I was baby. 90 rue d'Assas, not so far from one place of the book. It's amazing. And I learned that people were supposed to help you can let you down. And I learned too that people who are not supposed to help you can save you. So I was a lucky child. I had a wonderful parents. I had an happy childhood, and very early I was attracted by emotion. My parents and I went to see the Disney of the year every year, and I was impressed by the show, but I was also impressed by the fact that people feel together, see an audience laugh or cry or be afraid. It's an amazing experience. And very, very early, I tried to work for cinema. I managed with the help of my grandmother, she paid me my first ticket for Los Angeles against the advice of my parents. It was a big struggle in family, and I discovered movies. And I at this time I saw built an emotion was a technical process, and I discovered that it's very, and I'm impressed to talk about this with you because it's so personal. I'm not used to talk about this, and I discovered that the real emotion start with writing the script, the lines, and after by helping people to play them. And I tried, and I began to write exactly like you fell in love. You're not ready. You're never ready for that. It's not a rendezvous. You're always surprised, and it's something. It takes you, and it's your life, and you're discovering this by being a slave of this. I don't know if I'm clear. And I try to write, and people gave me a warm welcome, and so now I write. I'm the lucky one.
So you started out very young doing an internship in film, and
Yes.
then later you started writing. What was it that got you started writing? What was the first time you decided you'd put down a story?
I can't precisely remember, but I had a story. It was a story about Templars on castle in France, and it was about friendship, power, religion. Something. It's. I think it shaped Europe. It shaped Europe. It built Europe, and I was fascinated by this, and I tried to write a story. It works, but the more I grew up, the more I grew up, the more I was interested by feelings, because whatever the time you live, but whatever your function is, what makes who you are, it's what you feel. And I write in different genre, but I'm always writing on people who have something to learn from the world or from themselves to stay alive, or to be able to find happiness or accomplishment. So I always write the same story. I shouldn't say so, but you can change the context, you can change the time, you can change the main character. It's, to me, it's the most important point in your life.
Mm-hmm. And that usually is the center point of all these different kinds of books that you write, whether it's a comedy or a thriller. It's that snapshot in time where something's about to change dramatically in the life of the main character.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
and,
you're right.
And it really is a moment where it could go one way or it could go another way, and you take the reader on the journey to find out what they'll do. So you have written so many books, Gilles. You've written almost a book a year for nearly 2 decades. Can you tell us a little bit about what your methods are, if you have habits, and if you have any secrets that you want to share with us for those of us who dream of writing?
I'm a simple man, and I like writing. It's not an obligation for me. If I had more time, I would write more books, because I have so many stories in my head, in my heart, and time running fast. And I began discovering that my books could interesting people was like a rebirth for me, a sort of liberation. And I feel free because of people. I feel modest because of other people. And I began writing after my day work. So I was exhausted with children, with with many things to do, and it was after the dinner, and I was exhausted, and I was hungry about that. So I obliged myself to be to wake up very early in the morning. So I begin now by what is the most important for me. Most for me, and I'm and now I'm writing between 3 in the morning on 8.
Wow.
And after that, I'm open to the world. I can be with you. I can be with my other colleagues, and it's a normal life after. And I like this way of life, because I'm lucky. I don't need so much time in bed, but I'm an happy man.
So 5 days a week, you get up at 3, you write until 8 a.m. regularly all year round?
It depends, because sometimes you're on travel, sometimes I'm working for films, sometime I'm learning. So when I have time, I write, but I'm not stressed by that. If I can do it one day, it will be done another one.
And you have a few things that you do regularly in your books. You usually kind of have some surprises for the reader in there, where you might include information at the end of the book. Can you tell us a little bit about why you do that, and what kind of information you put at the end of the book?
Yes, thank you, Kat. It's an excellent question, because it's important to me. It's come from theater. When we talked with Renee earlier, in cinema, artists and audience are not together in the same place. But when you go see a play on stage, you see the artist, and you can imagine that artist leave the theater without a warm thank and a warm contact with people. And in the book, it's the same thing. We are physically together. You can be read by many people. You're always alone with your reader. And just after the story, I like to say thank you and to give another light of my work, on my work. And it became like a tradition in my book, and I like it very much.
And the readers, those of you who will read the Paris Labyrinth, you'll see that in addition to the incredible amount of real fact that you get in every single chapter throughout the book, there's some really amazing stories that are kind of a little more information about a person that you might have heard about in the book, or about a place, or about one of the adventures that the characters have in there. So don't read it first, wait till the end, because it's really great to go a bit further once you get to the end of the book, because you're not going to want it to end. There's so much that goes on in it.
Thank you for this advice. It was really important for me because sometimes in movies or in books, you think that it's not possible. Often, the most incredible is the only possible. History is stronger than any screenwriter.
Yeah, it's true. And then maybe before we open it up to questions, I'll just ask one last question, because as we said, this is your first and hopefully the first of many books to be published in English. As you've mentioned, you have really strong relationships with your readers. And I just wonder if you want to tell us, have you ever had a reader who gave you an idea for a book, or any kind of amazing story that you had once you had a chance to meet some of your readers in real life?
Today, just today, you are my first contact with the American audience. It's why I'm so impressed. It's why I'm so. It moved me really, because I'm used to be in your country. I'm used to know your people. It's the first time one of my book is possibly in your hand. It's such an honor. I'm so happy with that. It's USA is a country I'm so I began by dreaming of you in every single job I did, and your stories inspired me. So today it's a good example. But if you want other story, I became I don't know, godfather for children of readers. Sometimes because of me, people met sometime in the world because they read two people read my book and they talk about my book and they finished married. And there is so many. I think I'm close from my readers because I never forget that I work to entertain, to move people. I'm not in France, we are specialists about that. Some people in France are convinced that they are alive gods, and they are giving their genius to people. I'm not like that. I'm just a poor man. I try to be with other people because I like so much share knowledge, feelings, and it's why I try to write. Literature, books are the most intimate way to share feelings with people. Cinema is the most powerful. You've got image, you've got sound, you've got music, you've got bodies, you've got beautiful faces. But when you're in book, you can imagine your own character. Maybe you noticed I never described physically my characters, because in one country you can say such a woman is so beautiful, but what does it mean, so beautiful? It's a feeling, it's not a description. You have to respect that, and books are the best way for that. I hope I was clear.
Do you get ideas from all around, and do you keep notebooks to try and keep on top of things that you want to put into future books, or how do you remember everything that you're going to put into your future books?
It's a good question too. We talk about we are talking about the Paris Labyrinth. It was a 10-year process to write it, because I began reading, and after I developing characters and interaction, and but I always think of my book for many years before writing it. It's like a good wine. In France, we've got Beaujolais. It's a wine from the year. It's not the best one. You have to take time. You have to get it older, stronger, and sometimes it's not a good wine. You mustn't give it to the people.
Sometimes you shouldn't rush, right? You should wait until it's ready.
Yes, exactly. Like a wine, exactly. Sometimes I keep stories in my head during many years, and finally, no, I don't write it. And I never write anything before starting the final writing of my book. Why? Because your brain is a fabulous part of you. The more you ask, the more it gives. So I've got many files in my head with my next stories, and exactly when, as you driving in fog, the most you approach of things, the more you see them fine, and it's exactly the same process for me with my stories. Sometimes I feel it's ready to be shared.
That's fascinating. Melissa, are there any questions that have come in for us?
Yes, we do have a couple. Janine would like to know, are the reactions to your writings typically French, or do they represent a worldview?
It's a good question. Thank you, Janine. I always try to be beyond my nationality, because I think humanity is stronger than one flag. If you tell a story from your own place, you only have a single angle. And I think you have to touch the very human part of each story. And if story can be a national history, humanity is universality, really.
Yeah, and you've written books from all different points of view, from a children's point of view, a woman, a man,
yes,
in different countries. You really kind of mix it up every time, don't you?
Yes, yes. I think we forget this often in France, but the job of an author is not to write about himself. Maybe when he's old, you can write your memoirs, but if you are important. But the job is to become your main character and to try to see the life difficulties and on hope from his own point of view. It's really important. When I write, I forget who I am. I'm just focused on what I feel. And when I choose my main character, it's like a musician. You know the note you want to hear, and you search for the exact instrument to play it. And sometimes it's an old man, sometimes it's a young woman. I'm not afraid about that.
Are there any other questions?
We have one more from Lil, who would like to know, which is your favorite book that you would like to see translated next in English?
Good question. For good, thank you for that. I don't know. Maybe a comedy, because I'm mostly known for my comedy. The book Paris Labyrinth is not the funniest one. Maybe it's the strongest one. It's about Paris, about changing times. It's about humanity, and maybe it's why Kate and Anna Pavlovich choose it to be my first vessel in your sea. But yes, comedy are a good. Yes, I would like. I never imagined that, but maybe a comedy. Kate will choose.
We have another question from Janine. How can you deal with all the ideas about your next book when you're still writing the present one?
It's a good question, Janine. Again, I can explain, but it's a natural process. When you are talking to your doctor, your children or your neighbors are inside you, but you don't think of it. You understand? It's like you're at the bank, you're at the supermarket, you're the same person, but I hope for you, you don't mix everything. I hope so. And it's the same process. But there is no rules. Sometime in the middle of the night, I wake up and I need to think to a precise part of one of my history. I can explain. It depends of your emotion, your I can explain, but it's very instinctive process.
Well, thank you for that. Larry would like to know, do you prefer screenwriting or novel preparation? And what is the difference in the approach?
It's a good question too. It's not the same job, because when you're writing for cinema, you're working with many people. It's a staff work, so you have to work. The words for movies are just a step, because when you see the movie, you don't see anymore the words if the job is well done. In a book, you're the director from the early beginning to the end. So you work directly for the emotion of people who will see your text. It's and for cinema, you have just to be very precise. It's just dialogue lines and some indications, and after people build around this. But when you've got a book, all you want to put inside must be written. It's so different.
Merci, Gilles. Roseanne asks, what time do you go to bed if you have to wake up at 3 a.m.?
It's a good question too. I'm not 10 past midnight. 10 p.m. Yes. 10 p.m. But after 8, it's useless to ask me something hard intellectually. I like to be with my family, with friends, laughing, but it's no time for work after 8. So it's after 8, but maybe it explains my bad English.
I don't see any other questions in the chat, so if anybody has any more questions, please feel free to put them in. But what we could do is share a few more photos of Paris at the time of the book. I don't know if you've had any comments to make on them.
There is one photo
Oh, yeah.
I can comment because previously we saw the Montmartre hill with a tunnel inside.
Oh, yes.
It's a fabulous photo.
Mhm. Just a second, I'll find that one.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you so much.
Voilà. Here we go.
Just look at these fabulous pictures because it's not so old. It's Paris. On the top of the hill, you can see the beginning of building of the Sacré-Cœur. At this time, Montmartre was still a village apart from Paris, even if it was integrated. And on the left side, you can see it on the picture. There is one old church, Saint-Pierre de Montmartre. If you come in Paris, go to this church. It's the oldest one in Paris. She's full of mystery. You can learn much about it in my book, but it's a fabulous place. And for the people of Montmartre, Sacré-Cœur was a full mistake, built for bad reason. And you can also see a tunnel just under the hill. People made tunnel under Montmartre to collect stones to build buildings. And actually, some tunnels still existing, but they are not open to the public. And now there is a street exactly where is the cart. There is a street with many buildings in. I'm always impressed because in so little time, landscape change completely, and the mystery of Montmartre is entirely on this picture.
Do you mind if we scroll through a couple more? Here we go.
That one was is really interesting because now it's a restaurant, not so good. Don't go. It's one of the oldest house in Paris. It was originally the house of an alchemist. You know maybe the name Nicolas Flamel. He didn't work in this house, but he lived with his wife, on the first floor. On the other part of the house was for poor people, and I don't know, workers, not well-paid workers. He helped them, and this house was rebuilt on the top, but not on this basis. And there is an interesting basement close to the public. Many passages go through Paris under the surface, and it's one of the oldest part of Paris. You can find it too in the novel.
Merci.
I really hope I'm clear because it's such an experience for me.
Do you have any books illustrated for small children?
No,
No,
not for small children.
Not yet.
And do your books take place throughout France, or do you focus on Paris?
No, everywhere. In Scotland, in England, in Germany, in Africa. Yes, you're right. In Asia, sometime in France. But even when it's supposed to be in France, there is no precise city because, as I told you earlier, humanity is more important than the precise place, except when the story needed it, like with his book.
Paris is almost a character in this book.
Yes. Because the city is, yes, you said it.
We have one more question about the tunnel in Montmartre. Roseanne wonders, aren't they afraid of collapse with the tunnels?
J'ai pas compris.
Est-ce qu'ils n'avaient pas peur que le tunnel s'effondre?
Tunnels are made in stone. It's not like mines. It's not holes in earth with a pillar of wood to build them. It's all in rocks, so it can collapse. It's why most of tunnel in Paris still existing today.
Okay, I think that's all the questions that we have in the chat.
Okay.
I think, Gilles, we want to thank you so much, and thank you so much, Kate, for a brilliant interview. And I really hope that all 54 people who have been here for most of the discussion will order this book. I've read it from start to finish, and it's an extraordinary story. It's an extraordinary quest. The characters, as Gilles said, he does not describe the characters, but as someone who is also involved with cinema, the characters' names, their personalities. Kate and I were talking earlier, you could almost write a book about each one of these characters. It's a very intimate relationship with the reader, between Gilles and the reader, because these characters come to life. And I think another conversation, I think once you read it in a book club, what does this person look like? You know, who would you cast this person as? It's the relationship with the characters and the reader is very, very strong. So Gilles, we want to thank you. This was really brilliant. And I just wanted to share one thing that I found in this book, that it's a book that takes place during the World's Fair. It takes place in a certain moment in history. It's Vincent, as Gilles says, is the main character. But one of the most interesting points of this book is that it's very much about the present moment. And there's one line in the book that says, Vincent says, 2 final gazes had taught him that all that matters is what you decide to do in the present. And this is a particularly relevant book, I think, given what we've been living through the past year. What we do now, how we regard the present is very important. What happened yesterday doesn't matter. What happens tomorrow, who knows? But honor the present moment, because the main character in this book really does. And it's a very exciting book. It's an incredible read, and we look forward, Gilles, to welcoming you again once everyone has started the journey of reading your books. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I wish you the best. Thank you for this moment. Really, thank you.
Merci. We're going to take everybody off of mute so that they can say merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci. C'était formidable. Merci.
Ouais.
Oui, formidable. C'est le mot.
Have a good life.
Paris. See you in Paris.
À bientôt. Au revoir.